Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ananda Healing Hypnosis. I'm Amanda, and I'll be your messenger for today. So, the following message came from a recent Between Lives Regression session I did with a client. Going into the session, we both had an intention of gaining clarity on current world events. More specifically, the intention of the client was to feel more at ease with some of the fears that can come with parenting a child in these times of great uncertainty. There's no denying that we are on a timeline of immense change. And, these changes can often create fears and anxieties, even from the most spiritual people, even from the most wise people. So it's just good to acknowledge going into this that this message is really for everybody. And it's a message to go from survival into thrival. So, what came through in these messages for her were important to not only guide her into her own clarity and peace of mind, but to also provide that same clarity and peace of mind for all of humanity. Living in the existence of duality creates a unique experience where, as humans, we can have immense highs and deep lows. This is what creates our suffering, but in our suffering comes learning and growth. If we are not tuned into the higher dimensions, allowing our higher self, spirit guides, and intuition to guide us, our suffering can promote fear, cycling of repeating patterns, and feelings of being stuck, along with a number of other things. A Between Lives Regression session allows us to tune into our higher self, messages from our spirit guides, soul group, and soul council, so we can release these fears and step into a higher way of living on planet Earth. So just to clarify, when I say, higher dimension, higher way of living, I'm simply referring to a more balanced way of living and being that allows for less suffering and more understanding, and of course, learning for soul growth. So this isn't to necessarily establish a hierarchy, it's to create an understanding in our, human minds. This is how we operate. This is how we exist in this world. We see it in this way. So that's how it's easiest to describe it. So, okay, on with the storyline. As I regressed my client back, she entered the time traveling tunnel that brought her directly into a past life. Entering the scene, she could tell she was a 40-ish-year-old woman who was kind of dirty and poor. This was a life that she felt a lot of aversion towards because it was a difficult life, and it was a life with a lot of fears that she just wasn't able to overcome at that time. So we didn't spend a lot of time within this life. Essentially, we did go straight into her death scene, so that way we could just take away the lessons of the particular life. Of course, this is a Between Life Regression session, so we don't spend a whole lot of time in a past life. We spend more time in the Between Lives. One of the main points of a Between Life Regression session is to connect with the meaning of lives we've lived and are currently living. So you'll notice that in the storyline ahead. Within her death scene, she recalls being buried. There was a cloth over her chest, and a part of her sensed that it may have been her child, but she couldn't fully connect with what was happening because what she learned is that what happens here on Earth in our lives, it stays here. She doesn't need to fret over the details of this existence. As she allows herself to move away from that body and that life, she ascends up a ladder and into a light where she feels kind of blank as she moves into a state of neutrality. Yet she also feels a sense of calm and peacefulness. She states that she is grateful that this life is finally over. Moving beyond that body and life, she feels a sense of homecoming because she can feel her guides surrounding her, holding her, reassuring, supporting, and encouraging her. And it's like a big sigh of relief because she belongs here. There is no aversion, there is no struggle. She just is. The main lesson that she was able to take away from this particular life is to not take it all so seriously. The specific message that came through is that motherhood doesn't have to be taken so seriously. What happens on the earthly plane stays there. There doesn't have to be such an attachment. Now, this is where some of the really interesting information starts to come through. Information that, as a collective, we all need to hear and understand so we can make the conscious shifts now. This is how we go from survival to thrival. So the messages that came through from her spirit guide goes as follows. Many of us are connected to living in fear because of the practical realities of death on earth, but it's not our ultimate truth. Many of us have spent a lot of our past lives and even our current life living in fear. We must learn to live as though we are eternal and not finite, as in putting an end to limiting the self to experience a greater quality of life. This is what creates the support to thrive and truly enjoy the human experience. Too many of us live for the next moment, the next thing, the next existence, but we are here and now to thrive here and now. We begin to truly step into thrival mode when we choose to live fully in each moment. Stop choosing fear of death and instead choose beyond our eternal nature, knowing there's no true loss or death. Agree and commit to a larger reality beyond what our human minds are capable of seeing. Take each moment, moment by moment, to commit to the larger reality of what is possible. And by doing this, you can learn to see through the perspective of your soul. Taking in this message from her guide, she was able to understand from this that so many of her past lives were committing to misery. Life after life after life, committed to misery through limitation and not fully grasping what she's truly capable of. To gain better clarity as to how to commit to a more full life now, we ask for a specific action step. The message she received is that we must learn to make our choices moment by moment instead of committing ourselves so far into our potential futures. In addition to that, we must take a look at the motivation behind our choices. Are they motivated by fear or love? Are they motivated by our true values or the values of society? By understanding the motivation of the choices we make, we can begin to shift not only our reality, but the collective reality. A specific example that came to mind for her was seeing her son and herself on the stairs. She was being presented with two thought options here. Her son is fine and on the stairs, or there's a chance that he could fall down the stairs. As humans, we are always ready to assume the worst, basically, falling down the stairs. But what we model becomes our template. When we assume that something may go terribly wrong and base our potential future in fear, we can create that. When we trust, listen to our intuition, and stop assuming the worst, we can create from that too. So we have to decide what we want to create from, fear or trust. Make the choice that feels right. After speaking with her spirit guides, we moved to speaking with her soul council for guidance to answer some questions. Her soul council was more than ready to connect. She was able to learn a lot about her past lives and her current life. What she learned is that a common theme between this life and her past lives is that she has been learning to clear the fear around motherhood. She's also learned that she chose to live as her current self, so she could learn to break through limitations which in turn will allow her to assist others' lives. So here's just some of the questions that were asked and the answers, which are helpful, of course, beyond just herself. One of the questions that she asked is, how can we make the most and best of what's happening now and what's to come? So this message was kind of more specific to her, but basically the answer was just, continue to create what she's creating. So continue to do what she's doing. She is on the path that she needs to be. The next question is, what's the top priority for most individuals at this time if we are to maximize well-being and quality of life? Now, this answer applies to everybody. And the answer is to listen. Listen to your internal guidance and your intuition. Slow down and listen. What's the top priority for a collective if we are to maximize well-being and quality of life? Do not buy into or opt into fear. Now you'll notice that the answers are quite simple, and that's just because that's how the Soul Council tends to answer things. There doesn't need to be a long explanation. It's very simplified. So if we are to maximize our well-being and our quality of life, we have to choose to not fall into a place of fear. We have to separate ourselves from that, and we have to do the things that feel right for us. Allow your intuition to guide you. It goes back up to some of the previous answers and previous things that have come through. Now, a practical action step for all of this is to wake up, to step into your conscious awareness, and to make the choice not to live in fear, and do that every single day. Every day, we have to decide, am I going to live in this place of fear, or am I going to choose something different today? And when I say this, of course, I'm adding to this, but by waking up and making the choice to not live in fear, that's not to say push your emotions down or push your emotions away. That's to ask yourself, where is this fear coming from? Is this my fear? Is this collective fear? Am I just having a hard day? Is something going on? What do you need to make yourself aware of, and what do you need to tune into, and how can you shift that emotion? The next question was, how can I best use my awareness, knowledge, and skill set for better outcomes in terms of well-being and quality of life? And of course, this was specific for her, so the answer was, keep doing what you're doing because you're already doing it. So that's such a wonderful confirmation for her. How can we as a collective use our awareness, knowledge, and skill set? Listening and using your intuition. So it's interesting to see how we continue to get many of the same kind of responses. To access your awareness and your inner wisdom and your true skill set, slow down. Listen to your intuition, listen to your body. Quiet the mind chatter. Live in the present moment and stop venturing off in the mind. So basically, an action step for that would probably be meditation. Allowing your mind to slow down and really just be. The next question is, can we ask our star being ancestors for help and assistance? And how can we get tangible, practical help that isn't ethereal? So the answer was, tangible action is already being done as we are in a collective agreement to create the necessary changes for thrival on Earth. Now, how amazing is that message? To know that we are taking the right steps, the necessary steps to create thrival and not survival. I mean, that's like tears of joy wanting to just burst out of me. It's incredible. And then to continue with that, the other messages were, a lot of us are already connected to our star beings. Some people are more in connection and awareness, and some people are in, direct access. So basically, that's just saying like some people really know that they're tuning into star beings and getting specific messages, and other people are just kind of getting those messages through intuition, through certain knowings, basically. Everybody can obtain direct access. Of course, that just involves getting quieter, clearing that mind clutter, and really practicing that meditation. Because when we do that, when we allow ourselves to just clear our minds, we can be given immediate access. Immediate access. So when you learn how to effectively clear your mind, which honestly, it's not as hard as we think. It's just we're thinking that it's hard. So when you just allow yourself to have that quiet mind, any message that you need answered, you can receive. What are the potential outcomes of this present life? You can choose to live the same as other lives or break through. So again, this message does apply for everybody because we get to choose if we live the same patterns from this life or other lives, or we get to choose to change. For this specific client, her destiny and fate is to break through, and I do feel like that message is for all of us. We are all here in this time to break through our limiting beliefs, to create the changes that we know we are ready to make, because we don't have to hold ourselves back anymore. And then just to add to that, the other message that came with it is there's a collective agreement to break through. Again, I mentioned that before. But when we all notice shifts, or we will all notice shifts when we decide to break through our limitations. So the action step and guidance to experiencing our fullest destiny as individuals, as a collective, is to just break through those limitations and practice being present for clarity on your direction. Be here, be now, and just take that next right step. So to wrap up the session, we did go ahead and review a future potential. And for her, she stated that she already knew exactly what she needed to do. She'd been feeling a strong pull to move closer to the mountains, but she had been putting it off as a not now kind of thing because it just didn't quite feel like the right time. So I thought this was interesting for her that this came through, because how many times do many of us do this? We tell ourselves that it's just not the right time, and we keep putting it off and keep putting it off, saying, oh, I'll get to it later. And the next thing we know, that right time never comes. And we're old and we kind of lost our opportunity. So when you have that burst of inspiration, allow that creativity to be there and start coming up with ways for how you can make that happen for you, because that's the time that we are moving into. To move into Thrival, we have to allow our creativity to come through us. We have to allow ourselves to trust that creative inspiration and move forward with it. And in doing that, we get to switch from just surviving every day, working most of our days away, doing things that we don't always feel like doing or really even want to do. And instead, we get to do the things that bring us actual joy. spending time in nature, creating art. Of course, it's different for everybody, but whatever brings you joy, we get to do that now. We don't have to wait anymore. You get to do it now. So the messages that came through this session, they hold a high level of importance that goes beyond just this client. These messages hold the key to moving us from survival into thrival. So if you are ready to shift from beyond the existence of survival and into thrival, trust your heart and your soul into leading you on the right path. Now is the time to step into the collective shift. Now is the time we all follow our dreams and our calling. Stop putting it off. Make the time now. So if you enjoyed this message, I do want to invite you to go ahead and like and subscribe. And then, of course, stay tuned for the next stories that will be coming up and any other messages that I feel called to share. Thank you.